What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode, another season of the Roots and Streams podcast. We are going on season 4 now of the Roots and Streams podcast, and it has been probably about a month and a half or so since I took a break, a hiatus, a Sabbath. And now that I'm thinking back on it, it's really been just a break from the podcast. I think it was just like that one more thing during the summer that would probably just have completely broken myself and so many other things. And so I think it was much needed to not also have that stress of putting out episodes and trying to go on camping trips, of putting out episodes and taking care of the kids while the daycare was on break for about a week and a half. And so I'm glad I did. It gave me some time. I did find some time, not as much as I had maybe wanted to rethink, to brainstorm and redesign some of the things of the way the podcast works and how I create it. However, there will be a change for today, and I do have things a bit more focused. And the topic is more focused, and I have things written out. And if you know by the title, which it should be, it's going to be 4 things that are in favor for marriage counseling, couples counseling, and 1 that is against. And there probably will be a little bonus one for actually against doing this. And I just found that during the break, being in those conversations, again, I know this is a topic that I've covered with my wife. She's been on here and we talked about whether or not we felt like marriage counseling worked and what has our experience been with the awkwardness and maybe some success, and it just takes time. And so that was one topic that resonated with me, and it wasn't one that I was really necessarily looking for. I actually wanted to start off with probably something more biblical and questioning and digging into those kinds of topics, but this one resurfaced, and I'm glad I chose it because it seemed timely. And I just had marriage counseling yesterday and dealing with some issues and growing. I think dealing with issues and growing, they kind of hopefully should go hand in hand, and they don't always feel like it, but they are. And there's one other update, actually 2 others. So one other is like work update. I've attempted to applying for things, and I've, updated my resume, and I haven't felt like fully just receive a word or motivated or destined. And I don't know how to put it. I don't feel like Holy Spirit is putting on me to say like, hey, this is the job you need to apply for. This is the new field, or go back to school. But I also started feeling like pressure, like I should. So I started to apply for a couple of jobs and even change my LinkedIn status to, looking for work or open to work, whatever that says. And I think that's about it for now. I don't feel 100% driven to force that and get overtly anxious about it. And thank God that financially we're still doing fine. And the last update is that, unfortunately, I don't know if I mentioned it on this podcast, but I know people in my circle definitely know that I had a cousin who was battling cancer for the last 2 to 5 years or so. I wasn't sure like all the details, but she was a very close cousin, and she passed away during this break that I had, and it was definitely a huge loss for us. And it happened in July, and we just had the services this last week, and I had the honor and privilege of actually giving a eulogy and sharing what she meant to me and how her traits and just the person that she was just created so many beautiful stories and lessons that I am reflecting on and connecting to. And it has been difficult to process this, and the process of going through, the funeral and everything has been very sad, but also helping us, the family, and our loved ones move forward. And so we just wanted to share that, and that my cousin had passed, and thank you for everyone who has reached out and did know. It's very sad, and I'm still processing it, but definitely taking some of the beautiful things that she shared with me and the example that she was, especially for her love for her husband, which I am grateful for, and now reflecting on that huge example that she was, and want to do the same in being just unashamed and unapologetically in love with her husband. And it was so beautiful to watch. And I want to do my best to do that as well. All right. I think even that is appropriate to move into this topic of 4 reasons, 4 positives for doing marriage counseling. And of course, having one against. I feel like it's necessary to let's bring in a little bit of the argument and wrestle with this for a bit. And so number 1 on my list is having a mediator. And I know sometimes the idea of having a counselor, a professional, a therapist can sound very taboo. It can sound unnatural, and it can rub us the wrong way of like I'm medicating or something like that. But I'd say even bringing in a mediator, if this is where you are, and me and Sandra started off with this, of just finding like a couple that we felt like, man, that couple seems very wise. That couple seems like, they've been together for a long time, for maybe like 30 plus years, and something's working for them. And let's go ask them if they can just allow us to share about things that we're struggling with. And so shout out to Dave and Kim from Firepoint Church for taking us in and allowing us to have the opportunity to sit in your house weekly to talk about our marriage and give us some feedback. So that's really where we started. And I think even just having somebody, another couple, that is so beneficial because it provides someone that can give you space to be heard individually, right? And they should be a neutral party for difficult conversations. That's another benefit of the mediators. A lot of times we have resentment that builds up, and knowing that, okay, we can't talk about it. We have an upcoming appointment. Hopefully I can bring it up there and we can start to work on it. At least you might not be able to get it completely resolved, but you have some type of space where you can bring difficult things that you just keep bumping heads on. And you have this space where a mediator is that can help to give some perspective. And this person typically, I would hope so, right? Why it doesn't work to have like a friend or somebody who's rooting for one side or the other is that this person should want the relationship to win, right? Want the marriage to win, not necessarily have sides, and they should be trusted. And oftentimes when we don't have somebody that can be in the middle and be a counselor for us, when we're just talking to each other, myself and my spouse, emotions get high really fast. We get flooded and we get offended, and then we just shut down. And, one thing that stood out is that in scripture it talks about how a married couple should become one. And when they get married, they become one, right? In unison and united. And then another scripture that just popped out, and you may maybe say, Matt, this doesn't even make sense, but stay with me for a second, is that also it says in the Bible is that how when 2 or more are gathered, then there I will be, as in the Holy Spirit, as in God will be with you when you're meeting with someone else. So if us as a couple should be one, right, then that's not enough anymore. That we should invite other people into our situation, into these conversations. And I think it's very healthy, but very taboo to bring people into your marriage issues. So I think it's definitely a professional counselor, right? If you were just, you're barely starting out, it would be the safest thing, right? And it may take some dating to find the right counselor. But I'm also big on being open and not like trauma dumping and, hey, who's the winner? And we need a judge here with other couples that I trust and I'm comfortable being vulnerable with. But letting them know like, yeah, we're kind of not talking to each other and here's the issue, and sharing that. And oftentimes it gives space for other people to feel like, hey, we're not the only ones who have issues. And I think when we do that, it can help us to kind of maybe break free of those things that we are kind of having immediate mediator, and maybe not a professional one, and sharing with other couples, I think is a very healthy thing, and being vulnerable. As long as I would say I preface with, it's not necessarily trying to ask them to take sides or solve your problems. It's just, hey, we're struggling with this. It's hard for me to not talk about this. I feel uncomfortable. and just be real with each other. So I think that's really important, and God can be in that and will help you to learn from the other couple's issues, and they'll learn from yours. And I just think we kind of need to be done with this taboo of like nobody hears about our marriage. I just think that that's not a, doesn't seem like a very God-filled thing to have that division. To me, it makes more sense to have more community and move towards bringing people in and to let them then hear and be a part of the testimony of, man, our marriage has made it now 30 years. And thank God that we spoke to that couple and we heard about marriage counseling, because then that was like a breath of life into our marriage to know that, hey, we're not the only ones struggling. Do you see where I'm going here? Like, I think bringing more people into that story, into that testimony is a beautiful thing. And I think it's a very necessary thing. So number 2 is habits. I think marriage counseling can give you a platform to say, okay, what are the habits that I have practiced and that I'm practicing and I have learned? Because all habits are learned, right? We're not just born and we have all these things that we choose to do to communicate and allow ourselves to be understood. Like, these are all things that we've learned from other people and from seeing things and from experiences. And these are habits that we've created within our relationships. And I think marriage counseling allows a platform to say, okay, what are my habits? Are they paying dividends? Are they healthy? Are they bringing joy and peace to my marriage? Or might they be some ones that I need to disconnect from, or adjust, or unlearn altogether? And what are some habits that I can learn to replace those, right? For like maybe the way I convey how I am disappointed in a situation with my spouse. What can that look like in a way that it's not going to have a shutdown for, a week, and not talking and not being intimate with each other and skipping dates? And I think things like that are really important, like even challenging, like what is our system like as a married couple, and what do we do when we start to fight? And for me, let me just look through these notes really quick. Like even some let me give you some quick oh, why am I like all over the place here? Habits. Oh, I had more written on habits. I knew it. I found it. Sorry, guys. This is definitely still like podcast mode. This isn't going to be like quick YouTube, straight to the point. And I made it, so probably not. In habits is like, we learn from examples and experiences. And it, like I said, allows us to reflect on our communication habits, our routines. And this is a big one, like where love language comes in. And I would say another one, the third one would be perspective. I think it allows you to have a perspective that you can't have when you're speaking one-on-one with your spouse, because you're just seeing it really from your perspective. Unless you've really, and this is really difficult, and I'm trying to develop this, can be more curious than offended and prepare yourself and really be truly a listener. You just have the perspective from protecting yourself. And when you have a mediator, somebody who's counseling you, or another couple that you trust to hear you, you can hear what they are hearing. And sometimes when you're watching your spouse speak to somebody else about the situation and how they're feeling, now you get closer to their perspective without you having to hear it and take it fully on and be offended. To me, that has been very important and allows me to be more vulnerable and open to hearing my wife's perspective, and sometimes question like, maybe there's parts that I am not fully understanding and empathizing with that now I can, because it's not being directly told at me. And, a metaphor that comes to mind on this is, you say we're in like this beautiful garden of sorts, or just tropical area, and we're focused on like this one plant that's so beautiful and the flowers, but we also have a friend who is just stayed back on a hill while we took the hike down to this beautiful plant. And our friend on the hill can see all of these snakes that are coming in, and they are coming closer to and creeping into our location, but we're just so focused on this beautiful plant. You see, I think when we have somebody else that's looking out for us and that can hear us, and they can warn us and they can see some of the distractions and the things that we can't. And when they tell us, it gives us some kind of warning. And if we allow ourselves to be open, it's like, yes, okay, I believe this person. I trust this person. I trust that they have the best interest for me. And I believe them that these snakes are coming in and I need to get out, or I need to change what I'm doing here, or I need to prepare for it. Right. If it was probably our wife telling us that on top of the hill, be like, yeah, sure. She just doesn't want me to, to really dwell on and enjoy this beautiful plant. And there's no snakes out there. And so having somebody who's trusted, somebody that we can hear with clear ears and a clear mind, I think is important. And having a marriage counselor has been that for myself and my wife. And they're also a neutral perspective. And I think that's, again, also what I was talking about, having someone who's trusted is very important, because we know that, okay, we could hear them differently and our mind is just processing what they're saying a little different. And I think number 4 is that it kills pride. This is a big one. This is probably the most difficult one. And I think oftentimes I assume that I've already succeeded in this area, and I have marriage counseling, and I do sometimes some individual counseling, and I'm good. I'm above it. I have killed my pride. And then until it's about like right when I'm about to start a session, I'm questioning, do I need this? Like, am I really struggling? Is it that bad? I think I'm okay. And that's all my pride saying, I don't want to admit that I need to talk to somebody. And even if, say maybe I don't, why it doesn't hurt to check in. Hey, Matt, you sound good right now, and good for you, and receive some affirmation of, dude, you've been working on this, and now look, and today you're doing better. Like, that's a positive thing. And sometimes I'll try to shut that down and think, well, I'm good. I don't even need to hear that. It's wasting my time. And I think that's very a prideful thing. And I still struggle with that. And so if you're looking for ways to kind of just say that, hey, I still have stuff to learn, and I should, just check in and see if I'm doing it right. And I think that even more than doing it doing marriage counseling from the I'm doing it because I care about my relationship, that's nice and all, but doing it to admit I don't have it all figured out and I have room to grow, I think is more important. When we can do that, we can then prepare ourselves to really learn and be open to listen, and to not make assumptions prior to going into these sessions. And like I said, if you're questioning, do we really need this? Well, just, it wouldn't hurt then, right? To have a session, besides paying for it, which I'll get to find out and say, hey, wow, we're really good. We're better than we thought. And that may happen sometimes. And, another example that I have is just, what if nobody ever taught you, and maybe this is you, how to properly take care of a car, right? Would you ask a mechanic, is there something I should know about taking care of a car? And they might tell you, yeah, about oils and filters and tires and gas. Or perhaps maybe you don't ask a mechanic and your car breaks down. And you'd probably, I'd hope so, take that as a lesson and learn so it doesn't happen again. Like, oh man, my car broke down because I didn't know I had to change the oil, or I didn't know that I have to put more gas than it originally came with. And, nobody ever told me. And now I had to learn. I think it's the same when it comes to our relationships, our marriages, ourself, is that yes, a lot of us, the majority of us, have not been taught how to water and how to maintain a healthy marriage, how to communicate in a healthy way when we're feeling a lot of emotion, how to come in agreement on something when we have different perspectives and different opinions, and it's really hard to come to a solution, right? How do we work through that? And who are we asking? Right? If we're willing to ask a mechanic about a car and learn about how we're supposed to take that, I think perhaps we probably need to ask somebody about how we take care of our marriage. How can we improve it? How we can take care of and even reignite some of those right honeymoon emotions. I think it's totally possible. And there's a lot of wisdom on marriages these days, and it is readily available via books and articles and videos, and especially marriage counselors who has tons of tools to help you work when the oil needs to be changed on your marriage, or a filter, or maybe the way and the habits that you're taking care of it need to be altered. And those are the 4 top reasons and for going to have marriage counseling, and or like I said, seeking a couple that you really trust, or a person. And because I think it doesn't have to be necessarily, even though I think it might be best to start there. It doesn't have to be. And that's not where me and Sandra started, is with seeking some professional help. And here's one that's against. Here's one that is, maybe you shouldn't have marriage counseling if you are afraid of having, not if you're afraid, sorry, if it is rendering, if all that's happening in your marriage counseling, or you just, I don't want to say you just know, because you'll probably shut it down, is expensive arguing, right? I think having ground rules is really important moving into this. And hopefully you can have, and you're talking to your spouse enough to say like, okay, we're not going to interrupt each other. And we're going to do our best to use I statements. Like, I feel hurt, when you don't pick up the kids on time, or I feel hurt when we don't go on a date night every week, or I feel, just focusing on yourself and not blaming somebody else. And then here's one that I recently heard about, and said anything but anger. So when you are feeling something, try to dig deeper past the anger. And the goal should always be in your marriage counseling, to move towards being more creative and flexible to find solutions, right? We work on our emotions, we work on how we're feeling and being heard and being empathetic and being validated, so that then we can kind of calm ourselves down to work through in a loving way to find solutions. So setting these ground rules are important. And if you can't even do that, it most likely will end up in expensive arguing. And you're not listening to each other, you're interrupting each other, you're probably not even trusting the counselor. So if that's all that's happening, I would say you probably want to stop and set some of these ground rules. And if you're not even there, maybe individual counseling, maybe individual seeking out a mentor, maybe somebody at a church, or maybe somebody that a friend that you really trust that, has been through some of these seasons in a marriage. And if one of you don't have enough patience or healing to abide by the ground rules, again, you probably want to seek some individual counseling. Your therapist should not be your judge. Shouldn't saying, and don't expect that to say like, this person's right, that person's wrong. And if it is ending up like that, I think you're probably going to end up worse than where you started. And you're going to lose hope in that finding a mentor, or that your marriage can actually work, and that you're just, at a loss. And that is not a very healthy place to be. That is where you want to stay from. I think marriage counseling should be coming from a place of, all right, we want to maintain this, not like a car is the engine's shot and the wheels aren't turning, and let's try to fix this, where it's like, you might want to scrap that. And so we want to maintain and, keep our marriage getting tune-ups and not necessarily replacing parts. And one bonus against is that you should not, I think it's difficult, but you should not be doing marriage counseling if both of you don't see value in counseling, and both of you don't think it'll work, and both of you don't think it will help. We shouldn't be trying, and even though I'm guilty of it, right? And I feel this way even listening to sermons and advice sometimes, but we shouldn't want to necessarily fix the other person. I know you're probably hearing, Matt, but it is their fault. You don't know them. You don't know what they put me through. However, we have to take some responsibility for where we are in the relationship and the status that it's at right now, right? It takes two to be in a relationship. And unless we can at least start to say, okay, I'm not perfect. I know I have some things I can work on, and starting there. And because if one person is saying, I'm just being dragged in because I'm just somebody who needs to be fixed, it's not going to work. And you may just end up paying for expensive arguing because that other person is so checked out. They're not going to hear the tools. They're not going to try, role playing things and trying to see how we can work through things. And I think you'll just be forcing things, and you'll set yourself up to fail, and you'll dig a deeper hole. Now you have another thing. It's like another resentment. It's like, man, you should have seen the way they acted in marriage counseling. They were so rude, or whatever it is. You're just creating another issue. So I'm not saying that all is lost. I'm just saying marriage, don't drag somebody. I don't think it's a healthy thing to drag somebody into marriage counseling and want to fix them. Hopefully, even if it's just a small amount of an agreement, there has to be an agreement for both of you to be like, you know what? Yeah, I think we need it. And we both need to work on things, and we want to make this relationship better. Because I believe that when you're winning, right, you're improving your marriage, right? So it's a benefit for all parties. And you should be working towards becoming one, right? And that's what I started with, is being one in your marriage and in your relationship with your significant other. It should be becoming one. And it's not to prove the other one wrong. And I will give a little bit on, it really has just some reflection before I close out here, is that it has been quite the journey for me and my wife. And as soon as I think, okay, we're fine. And right now we're to the point where we do it like every other week. We think maybe once a month. And even just this last argument we had, we were able to kind of work past it a little bit to not just wait until our next marriage appointment, but it did come up, or our argument, and we were in disagreement, and it was just like high tension and kind of just being angry with each other over really, it's like daily, like parental things. And it's just like the anxiousness and the tension kind of boiled up, and we got frustrated with each other, and we were able to apologize and to move on from there. But it really didn't get unpacked until our recent marriage counseling session, which really was a safe place and a constructive place for us to unpack it. And it was difficult still, I'll be honest, but I knew there were some guards and some safeguards to say, that, hey, it wasn't a strike going down, like, when you're bowling and you have the little kiddie bars going up, like, hey, might not get a strike, but at least we hit some pins down. If we didn't have those safeguards, it probably just would have went to the gutter. So having that counselor was definitely our safeguard. And so, I welcome any experiences that you have to share, any wisdom, any feedback, any suggestions on this topic further, on even just the way this podcast just went today. I pray that no matter how difficult you find your relationship, your marriage right now, that God intervenes, right? I know this isn't an easy thing, and some relationships are in a very, very difficult situation. But I pray that God intervenes and starts to breathe in forgiveness, reconciliation, joy, and love, and that your marriage can have all of those things in a deeper way than ever before. That's all I have for you today. Again, like I said, I was keeping it short. It looks like I was able to keep it under 30 minutes. I appreciate everybody who's listened this long. I look forward to making more content and seeing where God just takes this fourth season. Welcome still to any guests. I don't have any right now that are lined up. It will be me just developing content for now. But if I get a guest on, I'm welcome to do a long form podcast and possibly still do a shorter video. Again, thank you for everybody listening. Until next time, y'all. Peace.